works really well, which is good. It looks like we're about to break 300 too, which is quite something.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
And yeah, for those who we have a capacity for up to 500 people. I don't think we're going to break the 500 mark, but there's also always the backup option of watching on YouTube, which I set up. I think you have a link for that. It's really good to see everyone here today from around the world. What I'm going to be teaching you works really well, no matter where you are in the world, as long as you can get paid. And I know in some countries like Nigeria, it's a little harder to get paid from foreign clients. That's something I've personally helped Writing Launch members with. So I know that can be a struggle, but if you can accept payments, if you have a PayPal account, like what I'm going to be teaching you really is something you can do. And you can get clients and write for magazines pretty much no matter where you are in the world. And a lot of people do that. So yeah, hello everyone. And I think I've waited long enough for everyone to arrive. I'm about to start the presentation. Let me load the slides. And thank you again for being here.
Hey, good to see everyone.
So I'm going to start the slideshow. And I got to share the screen. Just a second. Share screen. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here today. My name is Jacob Jans. Many of you know me through Freedom with Writing, which is a weekly newsletter that I'm the editor of, where we send out opportunities for writers to get paid. And today, I'm going to be giving you everything you need to get your articles published in 2022. And this is really important to me because I know that I send out so many opportunities to the readers of Freedom with Writing, but not all of my readers know how to take advantage of those opportunities. And I really want you to know how to take advantage of those opportunities. And it really can be very straightforward and very simple for you. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I really want to make it possible for you to publish articles this year as a freelance writer. And this is specifically about freelance writing. So I'm not going to be covering publishing short stories, poetry, creative writing, or applying for jobs. This presentation is specifically about writing for publications, magazines, and websites. And I'm going to be giving you a very straightforward way to go about that. I'm giving you this super simple pitch template, and I'm going to give you really straightforward instructions that you can use to use that pitch template very effectively, so you can get your first publication, even if you don't have any previous experience at all. And I really want you to think about this in terms of the long term. When you're learning how to get published in publications, you're probably not going to succeed on your first effort. So think about the road that you're going on. You started this road, you're here, you're learning. The road, I don't know how long it will take you to go down that road, but by the end of this year, if you just keep following the steps and take advantage of the resources I'm giving you, you can get published again and again. And you don't have to have previous experience. You don't have to have a portfolio. You do need to have decent writing skills and an understanding of the publications that you're writing for. And this is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about to you today. And I'm going to give you just a path to follow, some straightforward steps so that you can go down that road. And of course, I'm also going to be giving you a lot of free resources and the opportunity to work with Ian and myself completely free. If you would like to, that's up to you. So we just want to remove all the roadblocks for you. So I'm going to be giving you access to our easily searchable database of almost 2,000 publishers, including the contact information for the editors. This is for magazines, websites, publications that pay writers. And today I'm going to be going into detail about this very simple pitch template. It's just super simple, super easy. And this pitch template can get you published again and again. especially if you follow the very straightforward steps I'll be giving you today. And I also am giving you roadblock busting mentorship. As I said, Ian and I, we just want to clear away all the obstacles so that you can get published. And that's why we're giving you a free month of working with us and taking our classes so we can just clear away those obstacles for you. So let's get down to business. Today, in today's class, I'm going to be giving you 2 steps to getting published and paid for your writing in magazines. And the first step, of course, is really simple. You should choose where you want to get published. And so you're going to choose a publication to pitch. And I'm going to be going into a lot of detail. I'll show you how to do that really simply. It can be straightforward and easy. And I'm going to be giving you resources and methods for finding out exactly how to choose a publication. And then the second thing to do is to send a quality pitch to the publication saying, hey, I would like to write for you. So what is a pitch? I didn't always know what a pitch is. People who aren't part of the freelance writing world don't often know what a pitch is. And a pitch, to summarize it, is basically an email. It's almost always email these days, an email to an editor of a publication saying, I would like to write an article for you. This is my article idea. Does that work for you? It's just basically a simple email that is a proposal for you to write an article for them. And I'm going to be going into a lot of detail about exactly how you can write that pitch. And that's also so much of what we do at Writing Launch is we make sure our Writing Launch members' pitches are really great so that they can get published again and again and again. So that's what a pitch is. And also, if you have questions, we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of this. You can put your questions in the Q&A box and I'll answer them at the end of my presentation. So here's one of the most important things you need to know in terms of writing a pitch. You got to limit the length of your pitch to 150 words. And why is that? Editors are busy. I'm an editor, and yet it seems like my time in terms of working with writers and accepting articles is limited to about like 10% of what I do in the day. I usually have 10,000 things to do in a single day. Most editors have 10,000 things to do in a single day. And I can be incredibly productive and get 100 things done or 200 things done, but that's not that 10,000 things. So editors are busy. There is never enough time to do what you need to do as an editor. So you really have to respect their time. And so you want to limit your pitch to 150 words. I've accepted pitches that were 50 words, but it needs to be long enough to communicate your idea and give a little bit of credibility. And I'm going to be showing you exactly how to do that in a little bit. So just keep that in mind. Really respect the editors you're contacting and understand that they're busy, and that will help you a lot. So let's talk about what those 150 words should accomplish. First, it should demonstrate a clear understanding of the publication. I'm going to be telling you exactly how to get the right kind of understanding of the publication, but your pitch should do that. And it should demonstrate also your ability to write clearly and concisely. This is the first writing sample you are giving an editor, and it should be good, clear, concise writing. If you can distill your idea in a way that is super easy to understand and also has enough to convince an editor, that is a really good argument for working with you as a writer. And that's one of the ways that it can prove you're qualified to write the article. An editor is going to be taking a risk on you. So you want to convince them that you're worth taking a risk on. Am I going to want to pay this writer for the work they're doing? So, and you also, along with that, you want to show that you just might be easy to work with. And part of being easy to work with is being clear and concise with your communication. If you're a good communicator, that really helps the editor, and it also helps the reader, and that is demonstrated in your writing. And of course, in addition to all of these things, you have to communicate your idea for an article, and invite the editor to respond to your pitch. And I know this sounds like a lot. This is a lot of components, and there's actually more components in a good pitch that you want to actually have in your pitch. But here's the thing. If you do the right work before you write the pitch, a lot of these things are going to be in there automatically. And so I'm going to be teaching you in just a few minutes a little bit about the work you should be doing before you write the pitch so that you can accomplish all of these things and even more without having to think about them or worry about them too much. But this is what, in essence, your 150 words should accomplish. So let's talk about what you should do before you write the pitch. And really, the things you do before you write the pitch are the most important part of writing the pitch. If you want to get paid again and again and again, this is where you should be putting in your effort. You should be doing your research and your homework before you write the pitch, and not after or during the pitch writing process. So let's talk about that. So, but before we even go into detail about the research you do before you write a pitch, at Writing Launch, we've noticed that our students who have the most success often have long-term thinking. And the ones that get stuck, they often are too focused on what they're doing with their next specific pitch. So when you're having this long-term thinking, I want you to imagine success 1 year from now and not like tomorrow. Don't worry about if your next pitch is going to succeed or fail. Think about the road you're on and where you could be on that road in a year. There's going to be bumps in the road. That's what we're here for, to just move those bumps out of the way. But you're on that road. And if you're not at the end of the road, that's fine. Everybody starts at the beginning of the road, right? So you want to focus on the learning process. You do take one step at a time, but you really should know where you are in that process and keep an eye on, that mountain in the distance that you're climbing, and then trust that you'll get there if you follow the process. So think long-term and follow the learning process, and don't worry if you stumble for a couple of steps. So get that long-term thinking, and that will really help you take action. It just takes a lot of pressure off. So more about getting into the right mindset before you send your pitch and before you do the research. It's really important to make it not about you. You really want to make this about the editor and about serving the editor that you would like to accept your pitch. So don't ask, am I good enough? The editor isn't really worried about whether or not you are a good enough writer. They're worried about whether or not you can provide a quality product, if you can write a good article. So ask yourself, am I providing a valuable service? And often that means understanding the editor's needs, which we're going to talk about, and making sure you can fill the needs of the editor. And if you make it really specific in terms of, okay, I understand what the editor wants, and I understand exactly the type of article they like to see, you can have a good idea of whether or not the type of idea you're proposing fits their needs. And that's really about serving them and filling their needs. And you can do that. The better you are at just understanding their needs, the easier it is to overcome that barrier of wondering about whether or not you're good enough. And I know, as a creative writer, as a poet, I often wonder if I'm good enough, but making it about the people you're serving is a great way to overcome that. And that's really the role of a freelance writer, is to provide a service to fill the needs of an editor. So when you're doing your research and when you're thinking of ideas to write and preparing to write your pitch, you need to think about two audiences. Of course, there's going to be the readers of the article. You want to understand what role your article idea will serve in their life. Are you giving them practical how-to information, or is it kind of a fun article written for entertainment? What's the experience that you want the reader to have? What's the outcome you want the reader to have? And these are a lot of the things the editor is thinking about as well. And so if you're thinking about these things, you're doing some of the work of the editor, which editors love. As I said, editors are so busy. So if you can be on the same page in terms of advocating for your readers, editors will be really happy about that. So editors, as I said before, are so incredibly busy. They don't have enough time to do everything in the day, but they have a publishing schedule. They have slots to fill. They have articles and deadlines that they have to get published, and they're so busy, and they just need you to write the articles they need. They want to find trustworthy people that will do a good job, that will be easy to communicate with, and that will submit polished articles that meet their needs. So that you really want to think about the editor's mindset, what the editor is going through and what the editor is thinking, because that's how you can really connect with the editors. So that's the audience for your pitch. And the audience for your article is the readers. But when you're writing the pitch, ultimately, it's going to be the editor that matters in terms of whether or not your pitch is accepted. So let's talk about finding a publication. So you can find a publication using our writing launch database. And that's one of the things I'm giving you today is for an entire month, you can have access to our database of almost 2,000 publishers. That includes contact information for all of these publications. It's so easy to search. So you can find the right publications really quickly that fit your niche and your interests. I also really encourage you to get better at Google search so that you can find publications and opportunities on your own. So if you say you want to write about dog sitting, maybe there's publications that are professional publications for dog sitters. Type in like dog sitting and submission guidelines. So basically your niche or your category or your topic plus the keyword submission guidelines, that will help you find the contact information for publications that specifically want writers in that niche. The Freedom with Writing newsletter sends out a lot of opportunities. I've also found that following editors on Twitter can be a great way to get in the mindset of what the editors want, and they often post calls for pitches on their Twitter feed. So if you can find those editors in your niche and connect with them through Twitter, that's another option. And of course, asking for help or like networking with people. I like researching. So that's something that I can do if you accept our gift. These are a lot of different ways to find publications. And there's so many more ways, but like between that database, that I'm giving you, the Google search, Freedom with Writing, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So, of course, you don't want to just send a pitch to any publication. Some publications, they're just not great opportunities for getting published. Often they're too competitive, or they don't work with very many freelancers. Even if they work with freelancers, it could be rare that they accept pitches from freelance writers. So here's a few things to look out for. Something Ian has taught a lot is you want to look for multiple bylines. And what is a byline? A byline is basically the name of an author. So if a publication always has the same 3 writers writing for them, you can tell that maybe they don't work with very many new freelance writers because it's always the same 3 people. But if they're publishing a new article every day, and every day it's a new article from a different person, then they're more likely to accept work from new people. So really look for hints and signs that they hire freelance writers. So you can read the contributor bios, the submission guidelines pages, and just to see if they do work with freelance writers. Another thing is to check to see if they pay. A lot of paid publications, they don't necessarily say if they pay or not. That's why we've compiled so much of that information in that database we're giving you. And there's also a website called Who Pays Writers that collects payment reports from writers, and that's a really great way to see what actual payment rates are. And one more tip is I recommend staying away from the crowd. So if you think there's a lot of people pitching this same publication, that's just going to be more competitive. So if you can find like local opportunities just in your area where it's not going to be as competitive, often you're going to have much higher odds of success. If you stay away from the crowds of people who are pitching the same popular publications. So those are some tips for choosing a publication. So once you've chosen a publication that you're interested in writing for, you need to study the publication. And this is super important. You really need to get a sense of the publication, what types of articles they publish, how often they publish, what categories or departments do they typically publish in, what tone or style do they use. You need to find if they have that submission guidelines page. That's something we link to in that database we're giving you. So, and if it's there, you really have to read that and follow what they say in the submission guidelines page. And of course, you also need to find contact information for sending a pitch. And this is where, if you do this work, you are going to have such better success. If you do want to get published in a magazine, study the publication carefully. And it's slow when you're first learning the publications. And this is something that I think Ian would say you definitely get faster at over time. But if you're looking at where you want to dedicate your time as you're learning this, dedicate your time studying the publication before you send the pitch. So really get a sense of the tone and the style. And so there's also this idea of departments. What is a department? It's a publishing industry term, basically, about the different categories of articles they publish. In magazines, they often have like a recurring column on the back page, their feature articles, and like a few different recurring things. And those are the different departments. Often in larger publications, the different departments have different editors. So you make sure you know who's the editor for the department you're proposing. And when you're starting to think of the articles, make sure you know which department you want your article to be in, and that will affect the tone or the style that the article will be in, and that should be reflected in the pitch you're sending. So yeah, that's a little bit about studying the publication. So once you study the publication, you've got a really good sense of them. Make sure that your idea fits the unique needs of the publication that you're pitching. So as I said, you want your department. You want to really know the department that your idea will fit into. And also, this is a good time to double check which departments tend to have freelancers. Like some columns are departments, but they always have the same one or two writers on them. So if you want to write for a specific department, but there's someone who is already writing for that department, maybe that's not the best opportunity. You can still send a pitch and try to get in, but your odds are going to be lower. So look for the departments that always have the same authors and maybe avoid those. And look for the departments that are more likely to have the freelancers and go that direction. And that's more something for the larger publications. But that's really important just to increase your odds of success when you are thinking of your article ideas. So when you're brainstorming your article ideas, you really want to make sure that they are very specific to that publication. I know you have so many good ideas that are wonderful and worthy of publication, but the editor has such specific needs. You want to think about how your idea would be transformed into something that could only possibly be in that publication. The tighter a fit it is for the specific publication you're pitching, the more likely you will have the success that you want. So create 5 ideas, especially as you're learning this process. Create 5 ideas and then write a headline for each of those ideas. The headlines are super important. Editors, that's one of their major jobs, is to make sure that the headline is a good headline. So writing the headline is a good way to get inside how an editor is thinking. And then after you write those headlines, imagine those headlines in the publication and ask yourself, does the headline match the publication? Does it not? If it doesn't, maybe you need to change your idea. And if it does, then maybe that's the idea you go with. So ask yourself which idea fits and which doesn't fit in the publication that you're going to be contacting. So after you've brainstormed your 5 ideas, you want to choose just one idea to pitch. I know a lot of freelancers, they do 2 or 3 ideas in a pitch, but I really encourage you to do just one idea, because editors are busy. Most editors prefer to get just one idea. And it's also easier to have a short pitch. And especially as you're learning how to pitch, it's just so much easier to write a good pitch based on one idea. So you don't necessarily have to pitch one idea, but I really encourage you, as you're learning this process, if you do want to have that success and get published this year, to just pitch one idea in your pitch, and not more than one. So moving on. So you've done the research, and you've really researched and studied the publication. You've come up with some ideas, and you've chosen one idea. Now it's time to write the pitch. So the first thing you do when you're writing the pitch is you summarize your idea. And this is a time where it's really helpful that you've written that headline, because the headline can be just a really good summary of your idea. And often that's all you need to include in your very first section, is just this basic summary. And another tip, quick tip, the email subject line could be that headline that you created. I always recommend starting your email subject with the word pitch, and then the headline for the pitch, or a very brief summary of the pitch. The editors really, really prefer that format for your email subject line. So you want to summarize your idea. For example, this is from a pitch I accepted at Freedom with Writing: how a micro fashion influencer leverages Instagram to land paid opportunities. I could tell right away that there was some credibility here, because they were an influencer, and paid opportunities, that's like one of the words we use at Freedom with Writing. So this was a really good summary of an article. They did go into a little more detail, but this alone like really got my interest as an editor. Another example, this is for a feature article that was accepted in a publication I published at Freedom with Writing. I published a case study about how this writer got published, and this is from their pitch. They write, "I have attached an unpublished feature on native Nikki Pilkington." So the word native there is a great word, because this is for a regional publication, and it's immediately saying this is relevant to you. And it's, you can also see they use the word features. So not only at the very, very beginning of the sentence, you can see which department it's going in, and you can see that it's relevant from that word native. And then they give the article title or the headline, which is also really great: "From Penlyn to Palm Springs, the young Welsh illustrator living the American dream." So just that first sentence communicates so much about why it's relevant to the publication, where it will go in the publication, and what it's going to be about. And that is the type of like clear, concise writing that you want to have in your pitch. But then it goes on to have a couple of sentences. Pilkington's quirky art is making waves among young people in particular. So that's already addressing the needs of the readers a little bit, and it's addressing why it may be an article worth publishing. And it now retails across the globe. I myself am an avid collector. So this is interesting here. I myself am an avid collector. This is a way the person who wrote this pitch is establishing their credibility without talking about their previous experience or their previous publishing. You can establish your credibility in without having like previous publishing experience or credentials specific to freelance writing. If you're focused on what's unique about your own knowledge, often that's enough. So I myself am an avid collector and would love to share my passion with your readers, many of whom I suspect will be encountering her work for the first time. So this is a really good example that got an author published with a feature article. So here's another example for a pitch I accepted at Freedom with Writing. It's just really brief, really clear, and extremely relevant to what we publish at Freedom with Writing. I would like to propose a case study. We publish case studies at Freedom with Writing about how I broke into the Smart Mouth newsletter and got paid $1 per word. In my case study, I'll share how I studied the publication, chose an angle that might get the editor's attention, and used my bio as a marketing tool. Part of what I like about this summary is not only is it really, really concise, it also tells me specifically how the article, what will be included in the article in a way that I, as an editor, really understood. And I could imagine the full-length article based on this short summary. So if you can have a short summary that makes it really clear how the full-length article will look to the editor, that's something you want to aim for as well. So another example, I wish to pitch a second idea in call to your pitches, useful to freelance writers. This will be an interview with the senior editor at magazine, a top publication in the USA. This was actually an extremely short pitch from a writer I knew. They were actually a former Writing Lodge member, Viney. And so I was really happy to see this pitch. It was super short, super clear, and it was something I wanted. I wanted an interview with a senior editor at a major publication. So I accepted that pitch really clearly, basically just based on knowing the author and this sentence alone. So often when you're sending the pitch, just the headline can be enough. And this is especially true. So keep in mind that if you're sending like a proposal to write a feature article, you may need to include more than the headline. But if you're trying to write for a smaller department that is a good entry level for new freelance writers, sometimes the headline can be enough just to grab that editor's attention. So the headline can be enough, but then another sentence or two to really make it clear why the article should be written and what it will be about. That can really help and make a big difference. So you've summarized your idea in a really clear and concise way. And the next thing to do is to share a little bit about yourself. And this is often somewhere where writers often go wrong, because it's not really about yourself. It's about the editor wants to know that they're working with someone, but they also want to know details and facts about you that are relevant to your idea. So you still, when you're writing about yourself in this way, and you want to really make sure that the things that you're including in your pitch are relevant to your idea as much as you can. So here's an example from a pitch I accepted about me. I'm Matt Geiser, a software developer. And immediately the word software developer is relevant because he was proposing an article about how he gets paid to write tutorials for software developers. So I'm Matt Geiser, a software developer with the city of Calgary. And he goes on to list a few of his credentials. And notice he doesn't list any previous paid publishing. He lists things that make it clear that he's a thoughtful, competent writer. And that's basically all I needed to know, in addition to his article idea that he presented before. Like, I trusted him, and the things that he included were really relevant to the topic he was writing about. So another example, I'm a freelance journalist specializing in lifestyle and travel. Case studies, and notice they say who they are and what their specialty is. They don't have to have, you don't have to have previous experience in a specialty to call yourself specializing. Whether or not you are specializing in a niche is up to you. That's a decision you make. And if that's a decision you've made, just tell the editor that, because they like to hear that. So I'm a freelance journalist specializing in lifestyle and travel. And notice the next thing they say is really interesting. Case studies. They're turning it around in their About Me section, and they're making it about me, the editor. Case studies. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for case studies. Case studies have always been my favorite feature of Freedom with Writing. And I finally feel confident enough to put myself forward. So I think this is really interesting because they said just the tiniest bit about themselves, and then they started to compliment me, the editor. And so that's always a good thing to fall back on, is to make it clear that you like the publication and you know about the publication. And that's a good way to go. And this is from a pitch I accepted. Here's another example. And part of what I like about this example is for those of you who do have previous publications, one of the ways to include links to those publications is just by linking the individual words, the names of the publication, the way they did there. So don't have like a big list in your previous publications in your pitch. Just link to them directly, like the word truthout.com is a link to that article, etc. So that's a way to keep it really concise. And another thing to know is they didn't necessarily, like, if you do have professional experience that's relevant to the article, but is not at all writing experience, you should include that because that establishes your credibility. And so you don't have to have experience as a writer in the topic, but if you have professional experience that establishes your credibility, this is a place to include that. So finally, you've written your summary, you've written your short about me section. Simply ask for a response from the editor. And here's a few quick examples. I can have this article ready by this date. Does that work for you? Do you think this piece could work for you? And then you just sign off. You say, sincerely, Jacob Jans. And that's basically it. So I'm about to show you the very simple pitch template that you can use. And the thing is, this pitch template is so simple, but it works because you've done that research. And because you've done that research, you can take this very simple pitch template and use it again and again to get yourself published. It is not complicated. You do the research, and then you write this pitch based on this very simple pitch template. You start, I would like to propose an article. And then you give your very brief article idea. And then you just say, here's a little about me, and ask, does this fit your needs? Sincerely, your name, Jacob, whatever your name is. That's basically all you need to do to write a pitch that gets you published. And this is what we help writers with so often. Now, the funny thing is, I know this is super straightforward. I've given you like the straightforward path to just studying the publication and writing this pitch. But what we've learned at Writing Launch, like helping our members, is that sometimes there's things that aren't obvious to people who are new to pitching that are obvious to us. That's why we're giving you this roadblock busting mentorship, so you can send us your pitches and we'll just clear away those obstacles that you don't necessarily see. There's simple mistakes in pitches that we can eliminate for you if you send them to us. So we want to do that for you, so you really can get published this year. So I hope you take us up on this free gift offer that we're going to be giving you in a minute. So I'm going to quickly go through some of those common mistakes. And I've talked about some of these things already, but just to be clear, so that you really have the best chance of success, common mistakes include making it about yourself and not about the editor's needs, because it really is about serving the editor. Following up too soon. If you don't get a response, you don't just follow up the next day. You got to wait. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. So if there are submission guidelines, carefully follow those submission guidelines. And if those submission guidelines contradict what I've taught you, follow the submission guidelines. They're there for a reason. So another thing is, there's a lot of pitch templates floating out there on the internet. Don't copy them. Use your exact words. Part of why I gave you such a simple pitch template is so that you can use your own words. Editors can tell if you're not using your own words in the pitch. So make sure you are not copying pitch templates. Don't send your pitch to the wrong editor. Make sure you have an idea of which editor is in charge of which sections of the publication. Another thing I often see in pitches is writers really complimenting themselves, saying, I'm a wonderful writer, I'll do an incredible job. That's often a red flag for me as an editor. I just want to have clear communication and a clear understanding. I don't want to hear about how wonderful you are. I want to hear how wonderful I am. So again, don't do the lengthy article descriptions. don't have any typos or grammar errors. This is your first writing sample, so make it as clean and error-free as you can. Don't include a lengthy biography. Keep it really short, and that's where you also make sure you're only including relevant information. So when you're writing a pitch, often your first draft will be too long. That's fine. You can cut it back and cut away all the irrelevant information, combine sentences, combine ideas, make it as clear and concise and condensed, as dense as possible. I love helping our Writing Lunch members do that and learn how to do that. And then also one more quick tip, don't propose too much for a new relationship with an editor. As an editor, I've sometimes gotten pitches from people I've never worked with who want to write a series of 5 articles. But that's a lot to ask. If you're going to be asking for 5 articles, that's 5 times what you would be asking for if it's just 1 article. So really think about not like if you're establishing a new relationship, establish it in a small way that the editor can really trust. If you want them to make a long-term commitment, that's often what happens after they've published your first article and you've built that relationship. So don't propose too much when you're working with an editor. So before you send the pitch, a couple things to do is just ask a trusted friend or an expert for feedback, and keep in mind that simple mistakes can be corrected only before you send the pitch. So I encourage you to send the pitch to me, join Writing Launch for this free month we're giving you, and send me your first pitch, and I will just make sure it looks perfect. And so you can get published and then send it out. So after you send the pitch, keep in mind that rejection or just being ghosted is common. That's part of why it is so helpful to think in the long term. If you're thinking about what's going to be happening a year from now, you don't sweat the small stuff in the same way. You just keep going down that path. So expect rejection or simply ghosting. That's part of the process. I'll often send out a pitch and forget about it. And that's just most freelancers. They forget about the pitches they send and they go on and do the next thing, because freelance writers, if they're really building their career, they're busy too. So, but you should have a way of keeping track of them. So if you don't hear back from the editor, wait 2 weeks. It depends on the publication. And then follow up with the editor and say, hey, quick note, did you get this or not? Keep the follow-up as short as possible, just like one very short sentence. And then, of course, just start drafting your next pitch, because if you're going to be pitching publications, the best thing you can do is pitch publications, and that's how you can really go down that road to getting published again and again and again. So let me talk about what we're giving you. First, I gave you this very simple pitch template that gets you published. I want you to use this, and I want to help you use this. So that is the very first thing, and go ahead and use that. And you don't need to take me up on the rest of this free offer to get published, but this is the very first thing you can do. So the next thing is, when you're using this pitch template, I want to help you. So we're giving you a free month of roadblock busting mentorship. There are roadblocks that get in the way, so let us clear those roadblocks away for you. Let us do some of the work. And we're giving you mentorship free for 1 month, so you can ask us any questions you want. We're going to work really hard. I mean, it's kind of crazy how hard we work to help the people who join Writing Launch. So let us give that to you. As I said, we're giving you our database of almost 2,000 publishers. It's instantly searchable, so you can quickly find publications. It's organized by category. It has contact information. You can have this free for a month. We're giving you a month of the No BS course on freelance writing. This is our signature course. You can establish a long-term career as a freelance writer. If this is something you really want to do for the long term, we're giving you a month of this course. And this is really a great course that a lot of people have used to establish their careers as freelance writers. So the cost, of course, is free for a month. We're giving all this to you for 1 month. you don't have to accept this offer. That's up to you. But I really hope that I can work with you to help you get published again and again this year. I want to serve you. And Ian as well wants to serve you. So the cost is free for a month. We started doing this at the beginning of the pandemic because we wanted to help people in a tough situation. And not only did we discover that we were able to help a lot of people in the difficult situation of the pandemic, we found that we were helping so many people that so many of them also continued as Writing Launch members. And so it really is a win-win situation for everybody. We have been able to serve so many writers and help them get established in their careers. And some of them we know have chosen to continue working with us and letting us clear away those roadblocks and taking our courses and using the database. So that's what we're giving you. And so if you want to take me up on this offer, go to writinglaunch.com and you can get your first month free. Use the coupon code free month. I'll be sharing a link in the chat shortly, and I'll be sending a follow-up email with the link to that as well. So that's it for the presentation, but I'm happy to answer your questions. So let's take a look at the Q&A. And Ian, do you have any thoughts based on the presentation while I load the Q&A?
Yeah, I just think it was comprehensive. One thing I will say is that a lot of the stuff is elaborated on in our courses and our curriculum. So if you have, maybe areas you're not too certain about or things you want to improve, you can do that with specific courses. So like if you want to strengthen your pitching or talking to editors, we have stuff for all of that. I did see a few different questions that I thought were really good. If you want me to go through those.
Yeah. How about you? We can both talk about the questions, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a good question from, let me see here, from Susanna, who asked, do we need to have a website for editors to reference to vet us? And I think that is sort of a, you can if you want to, but it's not necessary kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say as an editor, I don't mind if people have a website. So usually when I'm reading a pitch as an editor, I will be like, okay, I like the idea. And I'm like, okay, I know enough about the writer to think I can accept the article because I'll trust them to do a good job. And so a website can show that you're a professional, but sometimes just a good pitch is usually enough. And a link to an article or two that you've published can also be a way for me to trust you, or just referencing your professional experience in some way, or something that makes it clear that you know the topic and have a good idea of how to write a good article.
Yeah. Two common themes I'm seeing in the questions are about payment and about multiple submissions, which is something we've talked about a lot at Writing Launch. And I think from a broad perspective, it kind of depends on the specific example, but for the most part, let's talk about, I guess, payment first and then the multiple submissions thing. So payment is kind of a tricky one. I think, Jacob, you might have a little more, experience with various countries and things like that.
Yeah, so a lot of every publication is different in terms of how they pay their writers. But in general, if you're freelancing, if you have a PayPal account, that will make it so you can be paid by most publications. It's kind of standard in the industry. I know we have a lot of people interested in freelance writing in Nigeria, and I know it's just difficult to get paid by foreign clients in Nigeria because of PayPal restrictions. That's something I've helped writers in Nigeria overcome that, but that can be difficult. But if you can accept PayPal payments, that's usually enough.
Yeah. And I mean, if you do not have PayPal, it really depends on a case by case basis. I would assume that for the most part, editors are willing to work with you to, use a form of payment that would meet your needs. But at the same time, location can make things difficult. So it's really an instance where you want to talk to the editor and just say, hey, my country doesn't have PayPal. I know you pay via PayPal, can we work something out? And I think usually they'll be more than happy to, assist in that way. Yeah, which it's a tricky situation, but usually it's not a deal breaker, which is good.
I also want to add, a lot of editors right now are really looking for diverse voices from around the world. So they're a little more motivated than they used to be in terms of making sure you can get paid. This week I've paid people in Africa and India, and Europe. So I work with a lot of writers from around the world, and that's often how, and the States and Canada. So yeah, you can freelance write anywhere in the world. So another question from Deborah: when we send a pitch, should we include links to other published works? That is something, if you have other published works and those published works are relevant to the idea that you're pitching, that's a great thing to include. If they're not relevant, maybe include them if they really help establish your credibility, and don't make them take up a lot of space. You could even say, you can check out my previous work here, and the word here could be a hyperlink. That's just a really condensed way of having it not take up a lot of space. I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. I saw a good question from, let me find it, from, it was someone asking about, do we write the article before or after the pitch? And this gets tricky because there are some publications where they will ask for the full article. We recommend not going with those because it is very often the case that you write a whole article, the publication says no, and then you really can't do anything with that article because you wrote it just for that publication. Most of the time, I would say around 85 to 90%, when you hear about pitches, you're talking about a sort of preview for the article. So it's for an article that is not yet written, but definitely, unless they specify and unless you want to go that route, definitely don't write the full article first, and that's what the whole point of the pitch is, and that's why it's so helpful. And it's good that it's so short, because then you can just, do a bunch of them. You don't have to write all these articles beforehand.
Another question from Christine: is it okay to send the same pitch to multiple editors centered about the same niche? This is where you really want to think about what makes each publication really unique. And so you want to craft your pitch so specific that it won't work for another publication. And that's how you can really grab the attention of an editor, is by making it something that really just fits that publication. If it's something that is like special access, like an interview, like the interview I recently accepted, I would send it to one editor. If they don't get back to you within a few days, send it to another. But each time you send the pitch, make sure it's a unique idea just for that publication. Do you have anything to add to that, Ian?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, yeah, those are pretty much exactly my thoughts. Yeah.
So Christine had another question. If you send a pitch, but you get ghosted, would you recommend sending another pitch 2 weeks later or moving on to another publication?
I mean, coming from the position of someone who, does this a lot, and especially used to do it a lot more, I would not personally do that. It all depends on sort of how much risk you want to take and how much certainty you want, because the chances are, if you get ghosted by a publication, if you send another pitch, it's likely that they're going to do the same to you, just because of, high volume of pitches. And usually if they, just didn't respond to you the first time, they probably don't have the capacity to respond to you again. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but I would, coming from the standpoint of a writer who's like, why I want to get stuff published and paid for it and make a living from this, I would rather pivot to another publication that has, a higher chance, because I don't really know, I don't have any baseline yet for what I'm working with on those publications. So the chances of them responding are a little higher than someone who has ghosted me previously.
Lisa has a great question. If an editor accepts your pitch, does that mean they have accepted your article and will pay you for it? Now, that's a really good question because, one, there's no guarantee they'll pay you for it. But if they accept your pitch, there's also no guarantee that they'll publish it. But as soon as they accept your pitch, that is the time to talk about payment. Usually, when I accept an article, I will, at the time I accept it, I will send my offer in terms of what I can pay in order to get the article written. And so if they're not telling you upfront how much they're paying after they accept the pitch, if they say, yes, I want to publish this article, but they don't include the payment, that's your time to say, okay, that's great. Let me know the rate for this article. And then if they don't tell you a rate, that means they don't want to pay you. So don't write an article until you have a guarantee of how much they're going to pay you. I personally don't think if it's a smaller, if it's for a smaller rate, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about a contract or anything like that. If it's for an established publication, they're usually trustworthy. But make sure that they say upfront how much they will pay you before you start writing. And some major publications, more established publications, they have something called a kill fee. And a kill fee is usually them saying, if we don't publish your article, we'll still pay you, but we'll pay you less, often around the 25%. So that's something that publications, especially if they're like established magazines, like large magazines, have a kill fee that they put in place just in case the article is no good. So they're protecting themselves a little bit. Not necessarily the most freelancer friendly thing to have, but that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. There's a great question from Sun. How likely is it to get a recurring contract with a client? For example, would I include that in a pitch, make myself available for X amount of articles a month for this certain price? And then Steve had a related question about payment. And I think this is a good point to quickly delineate the difference between publications and clients, because, and it's a bit of jargon here, but typically speaking, when you work with a publication, they are not really your client. If anything, you are their client, because you're working, for them, under them. And it's not really, it's different from working one-on-one with, let's say an entrepreneur that you have, decided to work with, met on LinkedIn or something like that. That's a different sort of relationship. With a publication, it's very much the case that they have sort of expectations and a system for how they work and for what they, expect from writers, and you're generally expected to follow that. So, and this goes on a case-by-case basis for the most part. I would say unless you are offered a sort of position on the team or some sort of freelance position, that you shouldn't go that route and say, I can do these many articles a month, just because since article writing is such a case-by-case basis in the freelance world, that's generally not how it works, which means that in order to make a steady income, you do have to sort of build a system where you are comfortable with pitching over and over and over again, and we detail that in our courses. So if you're interested in that and making a living through article writing, which is completely possible, I would urge you to take advantage of the free month offer and check that out for sure. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, Jacob.
Yeah, we are just about out of time. So let's look for a couple more questions. I'm sorry, we have more questions than we can answer, but
yeah, the response has been overwhelming.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone who has submitted a question. And if we don't get to your question, you can always email us at support@writinglaunch.com, and we'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible.
This is a question from Christina. She's a freelance journalist in Canada, originally from Germany, finding a hard time breaking into the English-speaking market. they've been published in renowned German media for many years, but those clippings do not serve her if she wants to pitch English-speaking publications. She's asking if she should translate 2 to 3 relevant articles and publish them on her portfolio site. I think that's actually a good idea. And really think about how to craft that about me section where you can say you could say you're a freelance journalist, originally from Germany, where you've been published in many renowned German publications. Maybe that's not quite the right wording. If you join Writing Launch, I could help you with the wording. And you could link to the translations, or you could link even to the German language articles. But just how you frame that, your own professional experience, if you do that in the right way, you can win the trust of an editor. And if you combine that with just sending a really good pitch that's super relevant, that should be enough to break in. And I think maybe you're right to start with small publications. It's always nice to get a few wins, just to get that momentum going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think maybe let's end on this question from somebody whose username is seemingly random, so I don't know how to pronounce it, but asking about do we need a contract to protect ourselves? And this kind of goes in with what I was saying about publications having a sort of pre-existing system. Generally speaking, if you've chosen a publication that is regularly putting out content and they have a good reputation online, as in basically you just can't find anything negative about them, it's probably a safe bet, because they have sort of a framework in place for that. They either might have you sign a contract, or there will be some sort of writer agreement, or if worst came to worst, you would be able to kind of use the agreement in the pitch as a sort of just collateral for that. But that specific thing has never happened to me. There was only one time when I was kind of scammed out of writing, and that was very much my own fault. So as long as you pick a good publication, like Jacob talked about in the webinar, you shouldn't have any problem needing a contract. Just because most of the time that's how it works, thankfully. So that's one thing that you don't have to worry about that much.
I want to thank everybody for being here. Ian and I really want to serve you, and so I hope you'll take us up on this free gift. We've found it, it's just really gratifying for Ian and I to help writers succeed. And so we want that for you, so you can keep getting published again and again in publications. Use this very simple pitch formula. Let me edit your pitch and clear away these roadblocks. Let Ian do this for you. Let us help you succeed. Let us just help you get down that path. You can do this. So join this free month. Take our free offer. You don't have to continue past the free month if you don't want to, but let us help you at least for a free month. And I hope that you have a wonderful year as a writer, and that you really start to get published again and again. And I know it's something you can do. You just put in the work, you go down this road, and it's something that we've seen happen so many times. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thanks everyone.